Check Podcasts. Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce, celebrating our 160th year this year. We are recording, as always, for this Chamber Chat in the podcasting studios of the Czech Media Group, one of our Chamber champions. I'd like to begin, as always, by acknowledging that I live and work in the unceded ancestral territory of the Lekwungen-speaking nations, the Songhees and the Esquimalt. And, of course, Chamber Chats is made possible by the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union. You hear a lot of conversations, you read things, you hear things about people who have differing opinions on the idea of development and developers, which is actually a term I never use. I refer to those people as people who build neighborhoods and build community. And I've learned a lot of that from the gentleman who's going to be my guest today. My friend Ed Geric is the president and CEO of Mike Geric Construction, also one of our Chamber champions. Ed, how are you?
I'm very well, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
So you're a name that's very well known in this community. It's Mike Geric Construction because Mike was your dad. So I just want to talk, the people who have started business and run businesses. Tell me about the beginning of Mike Geric Construction.
Well, the beginning, I was born and raised in Manitoba. My dad's from Slovenia, came as an immigrant here to Canada. And we had some relatives out here in Victoria. And one summer, I was probably 6 or 7 years old, decided to do a little family trip, and we came out to Victoria. And obviously, my dad fell in love with the weather, just the working climate here, and the ability to work outside, inside, whatever, 12 months a year, unlike Winnipeg, where you could only work outside for 6 months and the remainder of it was stuck inside or under tents or whatever. So he fell in love with that, and then came back, and the next summer we moved to Victoria, and he immediately started working, and for him it was when he first started business, it was about providing a home for us and a family, right? But second of all, establishing himself as a builder that builds with quality here in Victoria. So ironically, things that I remember was, we moved around a lot when I was young. And the reasons for that were not because, he got moved to different areas, because he would build a house and we would move into it. Then he would use that home and mortgage to build a second house. And then he would put both places up for sale, and whatever house sold, then we just moved into the other house. So, and he just leveraged, the family home was leveraged to get mortgages to continue construction. And that just went on and on and on. Eventually to a point where he had done enough business that we could stay in one of the houses for a longer period of time.
Yeah. So, and that work when he began was sort of and as I referred to earlier, building neighborhoods and building communities. There are very significant footprints in Saanich in particular that were created by your family. Tell me about that.
Well, one of the first places my dad started was in the Gordon Head area. And he, bought up streets and little subdivisions. And he always he didn't like taking a lot in an area that had multiple builders because he couldn't establish his own sense of quality community. So he always liked to at least buy a number of lots together so he could establish his quality, a sense of building, and then that each home kind of fit in the community.
So that speaks to the quality and the integrity, which I want to keep talking about here. But, you and I both know that some, for lack of a better term, developers don't have a great reputation. You have an amazing reputation because you do the right thing. Why do you always do the right thing? It's not the easiest thing to do.
Well, I think it goes back to my dad at the beginning where, he built every house as if we were going to live in it. And ironically, we did live in 50% of them early on.
That's right, yeah.
So that just continued on. My dad didn't know any other way. And it's funny, there's a realtor, his name was Dennis Farrow, who passed away a long time ago. He always said the best house that you can buy in all of Victoria is a spec house done by Mike Geric Construction. Because a spec house done by him was the best quality possible. He built it better than if he ever had. He didn't really like to do custom homes because he thought when people came in and said, this is what I want, most of the times they weren't up to the standard he would build in a house. So a house built by him that was then put on the market after it was completed was the best quality house you could buy.
So you've also done work and projects creating homes that are not single family. Obviously, there are
Yeah.
sort of little around Royal Oak, for example. Tell me some of the neighborhoods you've created there.
Well, you know, can I step back a little bit on that
Sure.
one?
Yeah.
Like after my dad was mainly a single family home builder.
Hmm.
And then I was in my 30s and I had just come back from Vancouver. I'm a CPA by background and came back and he had asked me if I had any interest in joining the company. And I thought, yeah, he always liked the fact that I had the business background in accounting and that and could help him out. But I said I was interested and he made one stipulation. He said, only if you learn the business. So then I actually had to take the suit and the tie off and put the work belt on. And for 10 years, I worked with him side by side, learning the business. So not only, so nowadays I can say I'm a developer, a builder, or like you say, build communities. I can also build them myself.
Yeah.
So when I joined, that's when the switch came we went from single family homes to developments. So when you mentioned Royal Oak, we've done, Heatherdale, we've done the Duval project. We did a project on Chatterton Avenue called Broadmead Terrace. We've done Trevino, a number. We've probably, close to 1,000 doors we've put up already in the Royal Oak area.
So when you take a look at it from that point of view, you were one of the first people I ever heard talk about putting diversity right into a community or into a neighborhood. You wanted it
Right.
to be multi-generational. You wanted it to be immigrant people that came in because you, of course, are a first generation Canadian.
Yep,
But that principle, again, that builds neighborhoods and builds communities. Tell me about that more.
absolutely. Well, again, like I do find that historically in Victoria, because of the type of market we have here, most builders and developers build strictly for market sale. And I think that's a bit of a problem because what happens is you have this supply of market, and then we forget about everybody else. Where's the rental? Where's the seniors housing? Where's some attainable, affordable? So when builders are just building market, we automatically will force a portion of the population to look outside of Victoria to live. Well, I, you know, it's sometimes it's difficult, but I do promote the fact that we'd love to have developments that have market for sale, market rental, some affordable rentals, some seniors, and also, have the proper amenities that allow people to live in place, stay in place. That's why we like to build, like we take Royal Oak, for example, we have 5 or 6 different projects, but they represent single family homes, they represent townhouse developments, and they represent condominiums so that there's that a generation you can move from your 30s in a condo to your 40s to a home to your 50s to a townhouse to your 60s in a condo and stay in one area. If we're building all single family homes in one area and you can't live in that or you want to downsize, you have to go to another area. So building a community that allows you to live in place and have different generations living there is what it's all about, in my opinion.
When you mentioned the names of your projects, I want to touch on that in a second here. Trevino, Matea, Tressa, they all have sort of a cultural connection, and I want to talk about that next. Our guest on Chamber Chats today is Ed Geric. He's the president and CEO of Mike Geric Construction. We're going to get into what you've done that's all the ethical and the green things within your building. But those
Yeah.
names I mentioned, Trefino, Matea, Tressa, that's a tribute to your culture, to your heritage.
Well, my heritage and my family. Trevino is basically Slovenian for gardens and rolling hills.
Hmm.
Um, we try to look when we bought that property, we tried to look back at some history and things like that and couldn't find a real good connection to a name or a founder or an original owner of that property. So I typically like to go back and, look at the Slovenian and I just say, type in what is green fields in Slovenian and something comes up says Trevino. Oh, that doesn't sound bad, so we go with that. And then Tressa and Matea are named after my mom and dad. My mom's name is Teresa, so we named it Tressa, which is our project by Mayfair Mall. And then Matea is a project that's going to be happening in Royal Oak in the future here. And my dad's first name in Slovenia is Matija, so we named it Matija after him. So So I guess it's a way to show some recognition back to them, and also I thought they're pretty great names too. So
I agree with you. It's just not that name it after the trees in the neighborhood or something. It's name it after something that
no,
adds some cultural enhancement.
yes, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, I want to talk specifically about some of the things you do. For example, when you're building buildings, you take into consideration soundproofing, which
Hmm.
people may sometimes think, oh, I don't know how loud it's going to be, but you take that into consideration. Tell me about that.
Well, I think when clients come to us or customers come to us and want to buy a condominium, one of the first things they say to us is, I hear wood frame buildings or 4-story condos or whatever, the soundproof is not very good. And that's what kept me away from buying a condo. Because most people are coming from a single family home or a townhouse to a condo. They're not used to someone living below them or above them. So soundproofing became a critical aspect in the sales of units, especially, in the areas we worked in, the Royal Oak, the Broadmead, the Saanich East area, where the people buying condos there are a little bit older. Sound is a very critical component for them. So we did a lot of things to try to increase the soundproofness of our units.
We also take a look at heating and cooling as something that has an impact on our environment because of the source being used to do both of those. You guys build that into your plans too. Tell me about the heating and cooling strategy.
Well, we use an electrical variable refrigerant flow system, which is basically fancy word for a heat pump system.
Right.
But the system that we use called VRF was typically found in commercial buildings. We were probably one of the first builders on Vancouver Island that took that technology and put it into condominium developments. And getting away from the old electrical baseboard heaters that are totally inefficient, the heat's inefficient, everything, and putting it into a building. But the key thing to the building is, and I don't know if people know technology about heat pumps, you go through an exchanger, it takes warm air, makes it cold, or it takes cold air and makes it warm. So in our Trevino project, most of our buildings go face north to south, which means one side of the building is warm in the morning and the other side of the building is cool, and then it reverses itself in the evening. So if it all works out perfectly, you have a zero energy cost that particular day, because when one building's cold looking for heat, it's taking heat from those units, dumping it into ones that need it, and the cold goes from those units into the units that need the heat. So the efficiency is amazing that way. So we've that's become a consistent. We Since that time we put it into Trevino, every single one of our projects moving forward have that same system. And now it's become a system that most developers are using also.
Yeah.
And they've been in Europe for years and years and years.
Yeah,
So,
baseboard heaters are dry. It's dry heat. It's not good
oh,
in the
it's
winter.
terrible.
Yeah, it really is. You do the same with hot water, right?
Yeah, hot water, very similar. And in fact, we enhanced that by in Trevino, we actually attached solar panels to our hot water so we could preheat the water before it goes into the tanks, thus saving, electrical bills and stuff like that too. So the solar panels we use for that also.
And you don't have to run the tap as long to get the hot water.
Well, it's there, it's instant, and the main thing is your boiler doesn't have to. It starts. Imagine if it comes in cold, it takes that much longer to get it to X degrees. But if it comes in 20 degrees warmer, it's a lot quicker to reach that point.
Yeah. And another point too that you work with is light source. The more light source you can get that's natural, you need less lighting. So you take that into consideration too.
Oh, absolutely. Skylights, larger windows, whatever it takes to bring in the light source. Yes.
And actually, you were a Chamber Business Award finalist for sustainable business practice. So the community started to notice that stuff. Now then,
Yeah.
when these projects are planned and go forward, another part of the process is permitting from a municipality.
Ah,
We're gonna talk about that next. Our guest on Chamber Chats today is Ed Geric. He is the president and CEO of Mike Geric Construction. So, Ed, you're working in different communities. You're doing stuff in Sydney right now. You're doing stuff in Victoria. You're doing things in Saanich. And every place you go, you have to go through the municipal process to get permitting. Is that process as efficient?
95% of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and is that stuff as efficient as it could be? I'm not here to kick government when they're down or anything, but there are some issues in that process, right?
There definitely are issues in that process. The number one issue that we find is the process delays. It's all about delay, and delay is costly for us because in most cases we're buying the land, and now we have to go through the rezoning process, and it's just the constant delays, whether it's I don't know staffing shortages or just the administration process that happens in municipalities. The cost of delays, I don't think mayor and council and staff in municipalities really understand. You know, they work there and they're trying to do the best they can. But we sit here and I've got projects where the carrying costs are hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So for every delay, it gets very frustrating. And in some cases, things take so long that I've actually missed the market and had to change a product because the project was no longer feasible or in demand. And I didn't even get to start that project. It's been so long, I have to redo the project, and then it takes another chunk of time to get it done again.
Yeah.
So it's the urgency doesn't seem to be in municipalities, and I don't know how to resolve that. It's a difficult question. Other than this, us telling them the difficulties we're having, why we need it quicker. They all talk about shortages of supply, etc. I don't know why they don't make it a lot easier on us to get product through. So it's difficult. It
Yeah.
really is.
And of course, we're all waiting for more housing supply, and these sort of processes
Yeah.
can delay that a little bit. But yes, we have great hope that that will get better. I want to go back. I want to go back and focus on some of the neighborhood projects you're doing. You've got one really cool in Sydney. Tell me
Yes.
about that one, right on the water. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's called the Rise on Fifth. That is a building that is a little bit different. It's a four-story building, and most people would think, well, that's your typical wood frame, but we're doing it in light gauge steel. So it's an interesting concept. The costs are a little bit higher, but we thought that was the perfect building to launch our steel, light gauge steel program now that I totally believe in. So it's basically all prefab steel, prefabbed offsite, delivered to our location, and basically assembled together like Lego building blocks. And then cement topping poured in between floors, and off we go. So soundproofing's good. Longevity is much better. Insurance costs are way down. I don't know if viewers know or listeners know that insurance costs on wood frame buildings are going out the roof right now because of not just fires, there's flood damage, etc. The steel and concrete avoids a lot of that, and the insurance costs are about half of what they are in wood buildings. So a lot of advantages on that basis with a steel, light gauge steel.
And a lot of people talk about downtown Victoria being in peril right now. In fact, downtowns all across Canada and all around the world have got some issues. But you have faith in that to the point you're doing a project in James Bay on Menzies across from Thrifty Foods,
Yeah.
and another one on a really cool corner at Quebec and Montreal. So tell me about those.
Yeah, Menzies is it's a 5-story. It's a market rental, complete market rental building. Some commercial down below. It's right in the James Bay community, close to shopping, all the services, everything. It's a perfect fit for a rental building in a good location there. So we're getting compliments on that building, and again, we're just going through the rezoning process right now, and from all accounts and talking to mayor and council, we're going to get good support on that project.
Yeah.
The other project is on the corner of Quebec and Montreal. We call it at this point, it's called One Point. It's a 17-story concrete building. Why we're not doing it in steel and concrete, in steel, is that light gauge steel is only structurally supportive up to 12 stories. Then you have to go to more of a heavy gauge steel. That's why on that one being 17, it's basically a concrete building on that one. And it's on the old corner where there was a parking lot there across from the Laurel Point. And we're going to have a variety there. We've got some rental in there. We've got some townhouses. We've got some 3-bedroom units in there. We've got a daycare facility going in there too. It's another mandate of Mike Geric Construction is to, on larger projects, ensure that we've got some daycare facilities for everybody. That's been an important one for us too. So that one again is going in front of mayor and council next week for one of its first readings. So we're hopeful that it will impress everybody at mayor and council and the neighborhood.
Yeah. Just to wrap it up, I mean, you're a guy who walks the walk and talks the talk when it comes to ethical building and the practices you're doing to be sustainable. You're also a guy that supports community. I mean, you support
Yeah.
minor sports, you support nonprofits like the chamber and the things like that. Why does that stuff fit into your business model?
Um, I think Bruce, we as business leaders or entrepreneurs or just people working in business get wrapped up in our own businesses, and we sometimes keep an eye on the business 24/7. What I have found is community, supporting community, or whether it's charities or again like the chamber or whatever. I think it opens our eyes a little bit and actually brings us more of a social balance in our lives. So I feel, being out there and communicating and supporting them is actually adds the fulfillment of my life and brings it more of a social as opposed to just being 100% focus, focus, focus. In fact, even today I own the Saanich Predators hockey team, and that started way back when Mayor Frank Leonard came to me because at that time Saanich municipality owned the hockey team, and he couldn't justify taxpayer dollars going towards a sporting. So he came to me, knew I was interested, and I ended up buying the Saanich team off of the municipality of Saanich. So I've had that team now for 18 years. So,
Hmm.
and I just love, the atmosphere around it and the community that it brings. And like I said this morning, a fellow, one of our hockey players came to me this morning, and he's having a hard time paying some of his fees and things like that. So we just had a conversation about life and what he was doing and things like that. And I, I gave him enough kudos to come to the owner and chat about that and saying he couldn't afford it. So we worked out a payment plan for him that he's happy with, and he'll be a great addition to our team for this year too. So.
And that's why, as you said, you are a business leader. Ed Geric of Mike Geric Construction. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks for all
Oh,
you
thank
do.
you.
Thanks.
Appreciate having you here, and it's wonderful being a champion.
And you are. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
I'm Bruce Williams. We'll see you again for another Chamber Chat.